सरस्वती श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतरशत श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतरशत श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतरशत श्रीमद् भक्ति विज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद शतरशत सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्लोक बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रीनाथ बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनो गौरिय गुरुवार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम चाहे श्लह कोर की जाए। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाए। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाए। सार्व अभिष्ट विदाति गिरिराज महाराज की जाए। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम की जाए। श्री मुन देवी गंगा दे जाए। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाए। श्री भक्ति देवी की जाए। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद purports की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री ताई गौर ब्रह्मानंदे हरि हरि बोल। धन्यवाद प्रणाम सुदेवी दीदी। ओम ज्ञानन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ओम्योपदाय राधिका प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति मेने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेमायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो वीरः कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूत हृदयमुनिमास्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तन हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञराधे त्वां नायमां चरणन्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय अष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणा। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Raseshwari Mataji. So yesterday, let's see, let's go over what we read yesterday. Confusion of the Creator. Many gods celebrated Aghasura's death in the higher planets. Hearing their songs, Lord Brahma wondered how could a little cowherd boy act so wonderfully? It was almost a daily routine for Krishna in Vrindavan to kill someone who often, curiously enough, appeared just before lunchtime. After killing Aghasura, Krishna brought the gopas and calves to the beautiful riverbank of Yamuna and proposed to have lunch there. They all sat down to eat in concentric circles around Krishna, who appeared like the whirl of a lotus. While the boys, so Krishna appeared like the whirl of the lotus, while the boys appeared like its petals. They each tasted each other's preparations, shared jokes, and laughed. Seeing the supreme, and here's a picture of, on the cover up. Where is? See, you can see here. See, there's all the cowherd boys sitting in circles. Oops, accidentally. So seeing the supreme God exchange, the Lord's exchanges with the gopas, even the demigods were surprised. While the boys were enjoying this, their calves went deep into the forest, being allured by green grass. The gopas realized this, frightened. Krishna told them to continue taking their lunch, and he personally went out in search of the calves. Brahma, wanting to test the power of Krishna, stole all the boys and calves. Despite searching everywhere, Krishna couldn't find the calves and returned to the riverbank, where he found the gopas missing too. Lord Krishna could immediately understand the deed and mood of Brahma. Then Krishna, by his supreme mystic power, expanded as all the missing gopas and the calves, exactly replicating their bodily features and mannerisms. Thus Krishna, surrounded by his own expansions, entered the village of Vrindavan while playing on his enchanting flute. He entered the respective cowsheds as calves. He entered the respective cowsheds as calves, and the homes as gopas. Isn't that amazing? That I just find that so amazing that all the cows had Krishna directly their son. Even the cows, they had, and like the form of the Lord himself, Krishna, as their son, directly their son. All the Vrajavasis had more affection for Krishna than their own children, and even their own selves. Previously, the elder gopis of Vrindavan had desired to serve Krishna like Mother Yashoda did. Now, Krishna fulfilled that desire by appearing in the forms of their children. All the gopis exhibited more love for their children now than ever before, and the increase of their affection knew no bounds. The cows saw their calves at Govardhan Hill and came to see them and allowed them to drink their milk sumptuously. The cowherd men saw this and angrily moved the cows. But when they saw their own sons, they were also overwhelmed with parental affection and embraced them with great love. Seeing this uncommon exchange between the cowherd men and cowherd boys, and the cows and the calves, Balaram was astonished. Krishna then related to Balaram what had happened due to the mischief of Brahma. So we read up to this point where the cowherd men were showing so much affection to their cowherd boys and the cows to their calves. So let's continue on. Hari Bol Madhavidi Dandavat from. Dandavat pranams to Indira Mataji, who will be watching later, and especially to Rup Manjari Di. I'm not sure if she'll get a chance to watch, but if she does, Dandavat pranams to Rup Manjari Didi. There's some special news, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share publicly. Anyhow. Ekada charayan vatsan sarama. Let's see the previous verses so that we get there. In this way, Lord Shri Krishna, having himself become cowherd boys and groups of calves, trained himself by himself. Thus he continued his pastimes both in Vrindavan and in the forest for 1 year. So this is going on for 1 year. Wow. Ekada charayan vatsan saramo vanamavishat shasasu shasu triyamasu hayana puranishvaja. One day, 5 or 6 nights before the completion of the year, Krishna, tending the calves, entered the forest along with Balaram. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Up to this time, even Balaram was captivated by the bewilderment that covered Brahmā. Even Balaram did not know that all the calves and cowherd boys were expansions of Krishna, or that he himself was also an expansion of Krishna. This was disclosed just 5 or 6 days before the completion of the year. Tato vidhuraj charato gavo vatsan upavrajam govardhanadri shirasi charantyo dadrishustrinam. Thereafter, while pasturing atop Govardhan hill, the cows looked down to find some green grass and saw their calves pasturing near Vrindavan, not very far away. Drishtva tatat sneha vasho smritatma sagovratyat tyatmapadurgamarga tvipat kakudgriva udasya pucho gadhum kritar asrupaya javena. When the cows saw their own calves from the top of Govardhan hill, they forgot themselves and their anchors because of increased infection. And although the path was very rough, they ran toward their calves with great anxiety, each running as if one pair of legs. Their milk bags full and flowing with milk, their heads and tails raised, and their humps moving with their necks, they ran forcefully until they reached their calves to feed them. Purport. Generally, the calves and cows are pastured separately. The elderly men take care of the calves, and the small children see to the calves. The elderly men take care of the cows, and the small children see to the calves. This time, however, the cows immediately forgot their position as soon as they saw their calves below Govardhan hill, and they ran with great force, their tails erect and their front and hind legs joined, until they reached their calves. Sameta gavadho vatsan vatsavatyo pyapayayan gilantya iva changani lihantya svodasampaya. The cows had given birth to new calves, but while coming down from Govardhan hill, the cows, because of increased affection for the older calves, allowed the older calves to drink milk from their milk bags, and then began licking the calves' bodies in anxiety, as if one told them. Gopastadro danaya samogya lajjoru manyuna durghada kritrato bhyetya govatsarta drishu sutan. The cowherd men, having been unable to check the cows from going to their calves, felt simultaneously ashamed and angry. They crossed the rough road with great difficulty, but when they came down and saw their own sons, they were overwhelmed by great affection. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Everyone was increasing in affection for Krishna. When the cowherd men coming down from the hill saw their own sons, who were no one else than Krishna, their affection increased. Tad ikshanot prema rasa plutashaya jatanuraga gatamanyavor bhakan uduhya dorbhi parirabhya murdhani granar avaparamang mudante. At that time, all the thoughts of the cowherd men merged in the mellow of parental love, which was aroused by the sight of their sons. Experiencing a great attraction, their anger completely disappearing, they lifted their sons, embraced them in their arms, and enjoyed the highest pleasure by smelling their sons' heads. Purport. After Brahma stole the original cowherd boys and calves, Krishna expanded himself to become the boys and calves again. Therefore, because the boys were Krishna's expansions, the cowherd men were especially attracted to them. At first, the cowherd men who were on the top of the hill were angry, but because of Krishna, the boys were extremely attractive, and therefore the cowherd men immediately came down from the hill with special affection. Tata pravayaso gopas tokashlesha sunirvrita krichrach chanar apagatas taranus mrittudas shrava. Thereafter, the elderly cowherd men, having obtained feeling from embracing their sons, gradually and with great difficulty and reluctance, they ceased embracing them and returned to the forest. But as the men remembered sons, tears began to roll down from their eyes. Purport. In the beginning, the cowherd men were angry that the calves were being attracted by the calves. But when the men came down from the hill, they themselves were attracted by their sons, and therefore the men embraced them. To embrace one's son and smell his head are symptoms of affection. Vrajasya Rama Premardher Vikshot Kantyam Anukshanam Muktastaneshva Pateshva Apyahetu Virachintayat. Sorry, I messed up. Because of increase of affection, the cows had constant attachment, even to those calves that were grown up and had stopped sucking milk from their mothers. When Baladev saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it, and thus he began to consider as follows. Purport. The cows had younger calves who started sucking milk from their mothers, and some of the cows had newly given birth. But now, because of love, the cows enthusiastically showed their affection for their older calves, which had left off milking. These calves were grown up, but still the mothers wanted to feed them. Therefore, Balaram was a little surprised, and he wanted to inquire from Krishna about the reason for their behavior. Their mothers were actually more anxious to feed the older calves, although the new calves were present, because the older calves were expansions of Krishna. These surprising events were taking place by the manipulation of Maya. There are two Mayas working under the direction of Krishna. Mahamaya, the energy of the material world, and Yogamaya, the energy of the spiritual world. These uncommon events were taking place because of the influence of Yogamaya. From the very day on which Brahma stole the calves and boys, Yogamaya acted in such a way that the residents of Vrindavan, including even Lord Balaram, could not understand how Yogamaya was working and causing such uncommon things to happen. But as Yogamaya gradually acted, Balaram in particular was able to understand what was happening, and therefore he inquired from Krishna. And there's a place where we go to on Govardhan Hill. There's a place where on the top of the hill. It's like on the, yeah, it's on the other side. There's a little temple of Daoji, and I heard that's the place where Balaram started to realize what was going on. Oh, and let's look at a picture. There's a picture of this part. Haribol, Pradyumna Prabhu, and Mantra Murti Mataji, and Gargaraji. Here's a picture. It's not highest res, but really sweet picture. Here, let me put the light up to it. See this. Okay. Okay. Pradyumna Prabhu, yes. Yogamaya is Subhadra Devi, correct. Kimetararbhutam eva vasudeve kilatmani vrajasya satmanastoke shvapurvam premavardhate. What is this wonderful phenomenon? The affection of all the inhabitants of Vraj, including me, toward these boys and calves is increasing as never before, just like our affection for Lord Krishna, the supersoul of all living entities. Purport. This increase of affection was not Maya. Rather, because Krishna had expanded himself as everything, and because the whole life of everyone in Vrindavan was meant for Krishna, the cows, because of affection for Krishna, had more affection for their older calves than for their new calves, and the men increased in their affection for their sons. Balaram was astonished to see all the residents of Vrindavan so affectionate toward their own children, exactly as they had been for Krishna. Similarly, the cows had grown affectionate toward their calves, as much as toward Krishna. Balaram was surprised to see the acts of Yogamaya. Therefore, he inquired from Krishna, "What is happening here? What is the mystery?" Keyambakuta ayata daivivaryuta suri prayo mayastu me bhartur nanyame vimohini. Who is this mystic power, and where has she come from? Is she a demigod or a demoness? She must be the illusory energy of my master, Lord Krishna, for who else can bewilder me? Purport. Balaram was surprised. This extraordinary show of affection he was something mystical, performed either by the demigods or some wonderful man. Otherwise, how could this wonderful change take place? This Maya might be some Rakshasi Maya, he thought. But how can a Rakshasi Maya have any influence upon me? This is not possible. Therefore, it must be the Maya of Krishna. He thus concluded that the mystical change must have been caused by Krishna, whom Balaram considered his worshipable personality of Godhead. He thought, it was arranged by Krishna, and even I could not check its mystic power. Thus, Balaram understood that all these boys and calves were only expanded Krishna. Iti sanchintya dasharho vatsan savayasan api sarvan achashta vaikuntham chakshusha vayunena sa. Thinking in this way, Lord Balaram was able to see, with the eye of transcendental knowledge, that all these calves and Krishna's friends were expansions of the form of Sri Krishna. Purport. Every individual is different. There are even differences between twin brothers. Yet when Krishna expanded himself as the boys and calves, each boy and each calf appeared in its own original feature, with the same individual way of acting, the same tendencies, the same color, the same dress, and so on. For Krishna manifested with all these differences. This was Krishna's opulence. Naite suresha rishayo nachaite Tvameva bhasi shid ashrayepi Sarvang prataktam nigamat katam vadetyuktena vrittang prabhuna balovait. Lord Baladev said, "O Supreme Controller, these boys are not great demigods as I previously thought, nor are these calves great sages like Narad. Now I can see you alone are manifesting yourself in all varieties of difference. Although one, you are existing in forms of the calves and boys. Please briefly explain this to me." Having thus been requested by Lord Baladev, Krishna explains the whole thing, and Baladev understood it. Inquiring from Krishna about the actual situation, Lord Balaram said, "My dear Krishna, in the beginning I thought that all these cows, calves, and cowherd boys were either great sages and saintly persons or demigods. But at the present, it appears that they are actually your expansions. They are all you. You yourself are playing as the calves and cows and boys. What is the mystery? What is the mystery of this situation? Where have those other calves and cows and where have those other calves and boys gone? And why are you expanding yourself as the cows, calves, and boys? Will you kindly tell me what is the cause?" At the request of Balaram, Krishna briefly explained the whole situation, how the calves and boys were stolen from Brahmā, and how he was concealing the incident by expanding himself so that people would not know that the original cows, calves, and boys were missing. Balaram understood, therefore, that this was not Maya, but Krishna's opulence. Krishna has all opulences, and this was but another opulence of Krishna. I guess Srila Prabhupada is saying cows, calves, and boys because some of the calves were probably old and they turned into cows. I'm just guessing. At first, Lord Balaram said, "I thought these boys and calves were a display of the power of great sages like Narad. But now I can see that the boys and calves are you." After inquiring from Lord Krishna, Lord Balaram understood that Krishna himself had become many. That the Lord can do this is stated in the Brahma Samhita 533, Advaitam Achyutam Anadam Anantarupam. Although he is one, he can expand himself into so many forms. According to Vedic version, Ekam Bahusyam, he can expand himself into many thousands and millions, but still remain one. In that sense, everything is spiritual because everything is an expansion of Krishna. That is, everything is an expansion either of Krishna himself or of his potency. Because the potency is non-different from the potency and the potent are one. Shakti Matayor Abhedaha. The Mayavadis, however, say Achit Samanvaya. Spirit and matter are one. This is a wrong conception. Spirit, Chit, is different from matter, Achit, as explained by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verses 4 and 5. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kang mano buddhirevacha ahankaram iti yang me bhinna prakritirashtada apare yang itastvanyam prakritim vidime jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. But besides this inferior, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. Spirit and matter cannot be made one, for actually they are superior and inferior energies. Yet the Mayavadis, or Advaitavadis, try to make them one. This is wrong. Although spirit and matter ultimately come from the same one source, they cannot be made one. For example, there are many things that come from our bodies, but although they come from the same source, they cannot be made one. We be careful to note that although the Supreme is one, the emanations from the source should be separately regarded as inferior and superior. The difference between the Mayavad and Vaishnava philosophies is that the Vaishnava philosophy recognizes this fact. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, therefore, is called Ached Abhed, simultaneous oneness and difference. For example, fire and heat cannot be separated, for where there is fire, there is heat, and where there is heat, there is fire. Nonetheless, although we cannot touch fire, heat we can tolerate. Therefore, although they are one, they are different. Tavadayatma puratma manina trutyane hasa purovad abdam kridantam tadrishe sakalam harim. One second, just checking everything's. Yeah, Prajun Prabhu, I think to some degree, yes, because we all have this desire to want to love somebody, but we're just putting our love in the wrong places. Tendency to love does have its object is Krishna. So I guess, yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Okay, so when Lord Brahma returned after a moment of time had passed, according to his own measurement, he saw that although by human measurement a complete year had passed, Lord Krishna, after all that time, was engaged just as before in playing with the boys and calves, who were his expansions. Purport. Lord Brahma had gone away for only a moment of his time, but when he returned, a year of human time had passed. On different planets, the calculation of time is different. To give an example, a man-made satellite may orbit the Earth in 25 minutes and thus complete one full day, although a day ordinarily takes 24 hours for those living on Earth. Therefore, what was but a moment for Brahma was 1 year on Earth. Krishna continued to extend himself in so many forms for 1 year, but by the arrangement of Yogamaya, no one could understand this but Balaram. After one moment of Brahma's calculation, Brahma came back to see the fun caused by his stealing the boys and calves. But he was also afraid that he was playing with fire. Krishna was his master, and he had played mischief for fun by taking away Krishna's calves and boys. He was really anxious, so he did not stay away for very long. He came back after a moment of his calculation. When Brahma returned, he saw that all the boys, calves, and cows were playing with Krishna in the same way as when he had come upon them. By Krishna's display of Yogamaya, the same pastimes were going on without any change. On the day when Lord Brahma had first come, Baladev could not go with Krishna and the cowherd boys, for it was his birthday, and his mother had kept him back for the proper ceremonial bath, called Shantika Snan. Therefore, Lord Balaram was not taken by Brahma at that time. Now, 1 year later, Brahma returned, and because he returned on exactly the same day, Baladev was again kept at home for his birthday. Therefore, although this verse mentions that Brahma saw Krishna and all the cowherd boys, Baladev is not mentioned. It was 5 or 6 days earlier that Baladev had inquired from Krishna about the extraordinary affection of the cows and cowherdmen. But now, when Brahma returned, Brahma saw all the calves and cowherd boys playing with Krishna as expansions of Krishna, but he did not Baladev. As in the previous year, Lord Baladev did not go to the woods on the day Lord Brahma appeared there. Yavanto gokule bala savatsa sarva evahi maya shaye shayana nadyapi punaruttita. Lord Brahma thought, whatever boys and calves there were in Gokul, I have kept them sleeping on the bed of my mystic potency, and to this very day they have not yet risen again. They have not yet risen again. Purport. For 1 year, Lord Brahma kept the calves and boys lying down in a cave by his mystic power. Therefore, when Brahma saw Lord Krishna still playing with all the calves and cows and calves, he began trying to reason about what was happening. What is this, he thought. Maybe I took those calves and cowherd boys away, but now they have been taken from that cave. Is this what has happened? Has Krishna brought them back here? Then, however, Lord Brahma saw that the calves and boys he had taken were still in the same mystic Maya into which he had put them. Thus he concluded that the calves and cowherd boys, now playing with Krishna, were different from the ones in the cave. He could understand that although the original cows and boys were still in the cave where he had put them, Krishna had expanded himself, and so the present demonstration of calves and boys consisted of expansions of Krishna. They had the same features, the same mentality, and the same intentions, but they were all Krishna. Ta ite tra kutratya manmaya mohite tare tavanta eva tatrabdham kridanto vishnuna samam. A similar number of boys and calves had been playing with Krishna for 1 whole year. Yet they were different from the ones illusioned by my mystic potency. Who are they? Where did they come from? Purport. Although appearing like calves, cows, and boys, these were all Vishnu. Actually, they were Vishnu Tattva, not Jiva Tattva. Sorry, 1 second. Brahma was surprised. The original cowherd boys and cows, he thought, are still where I put them last year. So who is it? Who is it that is now keeping company with Krishna exactly like as before? Where have they come from? Brahma was surprised that his mystic power had been neglected. Without touching the original cows and cowherd boys kept by Brahma, Krishna had created another assembly of calves and boys, who were all expansions of Vishnu Tattva. Thus, Brahma's mystic power was superseded. Evam eteshu bhedeshu chirang dasa atmabhu satya ke kare neti gyatum nishte katanchana. Thus, Lord Brahma, thinking and thinking for a long time, tried to distinguish between the two sets of boys, who were each separately existing. He tried to understand who was real and who was not real, but he couldn't understand at all. Purport. Brahma was puzzled. The original boys and calves are still sleeping as I have kept them, he thought. But another set is here playing with Krishna. How has this happened? Brahma could not grasp what was happening, which boys were real and which were not real. Brahma was unable to come to any definite conclusion. He pondered the matter for a long while. How can there be two sets of calves and boys at the same time? Have the boys and calves here been created by Krishna, or has Krishna created the ones lying asleep? Or are both merely creations of Krishna? Brahma thought about the subject in many different ways. After I go to the cave and see that the boys and calves are still there, does Krishna go take them away and put them there and put them here so that I come here and see them? And does Krishna then take them from here and put them there, and then he puts them there again? Brahma could not figure out how there could be two sets of calves and cowherd boys exactly alike. Although thinking and thinking, he could not understand at all. Evam samohayan Vishnu bimoham vishvamohanam svayaiva maya jopi swayam eva vimohita. Thus, because Lord Brahma wanted to mystify the all-pervading Lord Krishna, who can never be mystified, who on the contrary mystifies the entire universe. He is bewilderment by his own mystic power. Purport. Brahma wanted to bewilder Krishna, who bewildered the entire universe. The whole universe is under Krishna's mystic power, Mama Maya Duratyaya. But Brahma wanted to mystify him. The result was that Brahma himself was mystified, just as one who wants to kill others may himself be killed. In other words, Brahma was defeated by his own attempt. In a similar position are the scientists and philosophers who want to overcome the mystic power of Krishna. They challenge Krishna, saying, "What is God? We can do this and we can do that." But the more they challenge Krishna in this way, the more they are implicated in suffering. The lesson here is that we should not try to overcome Krishna. Rather, instead of endeavoring to surpass him, we should surrender him. Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. Instead of defeating Krishna, Brahma himself was defeated, for he could not understand what Krishna was doing. Since Brahma, the chief person within this universe, was so bewildered, what is to be said of so-called scientists and philosophers? Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. We should give up all our tiny efforts to defy the arrangement of Krishna. Instead, whatever arrangements he proposes, we should accept. This is always better, for this will make us happy. The more we try to defeat the arrangement of Krishna, the more we become implicated in Krishna's maya. Daivi hyesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya. But one who has reached the point of surrendering to the instructions of Krishna, mam eva ye prapadyante, is liberated, free from Krishna maya, mayam etang tarantite. The power of Krishna is just like a government that cannot be overcome. First of all, there are laws, and then there is police power, and beyond that is military power. Therefore, what is the use of trying to overcome the power of the government? Similarly, what is the use of trying to challenge Krishna? From the next verse, it is clear that Krishna cannot be defeated by any kind of mystic power. If one gets even a little power of scientific knowledge, one tries to defy God. But actually, no one is able to bewilder Krishna. When Brahma, the chief person within the universe, tried to bewilder Krishna, he himself was bewildered and astonished. This is the position of the conditioned soul. Brahma wanted to mystify Krishna, but he himself was mystified. The word Vishnu is significant in this verse. Vishnu pervades the entire material world, whereas Brahma merely occupies one subordinate post. Yasaika nishvasitakalam atavalambya jivanti loma vilada jagarandanatha. The word Nata, which refers to Lord Brahma, is plural because there are innumerable universes and innumerable Brahmas. Brahma is but a tiny force. This was exhibited in Dwarka when Krishna called for Brahma. One day, when Brahma came to see Krishna at Dwarka, the doorman, at Lord Krishna's request, asked, "Which Brahma are you? Which Brahma are you?" Later, when Brahma inquired from Krishna whether this meant that there was more than one Brahma, Krishna smiled and at once called for many Brahmas from many universes. The four-headed Brahma of this universe then saw innumerable other Brahmas coming to see Krishna and offer their respects. Some of them had 10 heads, some had 20, some had 100, and some had 1,000,000 heads. Upon seeing this wonderful exhibition, the four-headed Brahma became nervous and began to think of himself as no more than a mosquito in the midst of many elephants. Therefore, what can Brahma do to bewilder Krishna? Just checking everything's running okay. Looks like it. Hari Bol, Rukmini Didi. Tam yang tamo vanaiharam kadyotarchi vahani mahati taramayaisha mahati taramayaisham nihantyatmani yunjata. As the darkness of snow on a dark night and the light of a glowworm in the light of the day have no value, the mystic power of an inferior person who tries to use it against a person of great power is unable to accomplish anything. Instead, the power of that inferior person is diminished. Purport. When one wants to supersede a superior power, one's own inferior power becomes ludicrous. Just as a glowworm in the daytime and snow at night have no value, Brahma's mystic power became worthless in the presence of Krishna, for greater mystic power condemns inferior mystic power. On a dark night, the darkness produced by snow has no meaning. The glowworm appears very important at night, but in the daytime, its glow has no value. Whatever little value it has is lost. Similarly, Brahma became insignificant in the presence of Krishna's mystic power. Krishna's Maya was not diminished in value, but Brahma's Maya was condemned. Therefore, one should not try to exhibit one's insignificant opulence before a greater power. Tavat sarve vatsapala pashyato jasya tatshanat vyadrishyanta ghana shyama pita koshe avasasaha. Then, while Lord Brahma looked on, all the calves and the boys tending them immediately appeared to have complexions on the color of bluish. They appeared to have the complexions the color of bluish rain clouds, and to be dressed in yellow silken garments. Purport. While Brahma was contemplating, all the calves and cowherd boys immediately transformed into Vishnu Murtis, having bluish complexions and wearing yellow garments. Brahma was contemplating his own power and the immense unlimited power of Krishna. But before he could come to a conclusion, he saw this immediate transformation. And here's a picture of that. One second. Oh, it's on the back cover. See? Chaturbhuja Shankha Chakra Gadarajiva Panaya Kiritina Kundalino Harino Vanamalina. I'm missing one second. Shrivatsangadadadoratna Kambu Kankana Panaya Nupurai Katakar Bhata Kati Sutrangoli Yakai. All those personalities had 4 arms, holding conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus flower in their hands. They wore helmets on their heads, earrings on their ears, and garlands of forest flowers around their necks. On the upper portion of the right side of their chests was the emblem of the goddess of fortune. Furthermore, armlets on their arms, the Kaustuba gem around their necks, which were marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, and bracelets on their wrists. With bangles on their ankles, ornaments on their feet, and sacred belts around their waists, they all appeared very beautiful. Purport. All the Vishnu forms had 4 arms, with conch shell and other articles. But these characteristics are also possessed by those who have attained Sarupya Mukti in Vaikuntha, and who consequently have forms exactly like the form of the Lord. However, Vishnu forms appearing before Lord Brahma also possess the mark of Srivatsa and the Kaustuba gem, which are special characteristics possessed only by the Supreme Lord himself. This proves that all these boys and calves were in fact directly of Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. not merely his associates of Vaikuntha. Vishnu himself is included within Krishna. All the opulences of Vishnu are already present in Krishna, and consequently for Krishna to demonstrate so many Vishnu forms was actually not very astonishing. The Srivatsa mark is described by the Vaishnav Toshani as being a curl of fine yellow hair on the upper portion of the right side of Lord Vishnu's chest. This mark is not for ordinary devotees. It is a special mark of Vishnu or Krishna. Angrimastakama stulasi navadamabhi kamalai sarvagatreshu bhuri punya vararpitai. Every part of their bodies, from their feet to the top of their heads, was fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulsi leaves offered by devotees engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. Purport. The word Bhuri Punyavad Arpitai is significant in this verse. These forms of Vishnu were worshipped by those who had performed pious activities, Sukritibi, for many births and who are constantly engaged in devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Bhakti, devotional service, is the engagement of those who have performed highly developed pious activities. The accumulation of pious activities has already been mentioned elsewhere in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10:12-11, where Shukadeva Goswami says, Itam satam brahmasukanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena Maya Shitanam Naradarakena Sakam Vijahru Kritapunya Punjaha. Those who are engaged in self-realization, appreciating the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, and those engaged in devotional service, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, as well as those who are under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord an ordinary person, cannot understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as cowherd boys. In our Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, there is a tamal tree that covers an entire corner of the courtyard. Before there was a temple, the tree was lying neglected, but now it has developed very luxuriantly, covering the whole corner of the courtyard. This is a sign of Bhuri Punya. Oh, is that inside of Krishna Balaram Temple, Vrindavan? Let's see. I'm wondering if Srila Prabhupada is referring to, or he's probably referring to outside, huh? There is one big, oh, you were referring to this tree right here. See there? It's Krishna Balaram Temple, the big tree. I think he's referring to this tree. Yeah, it's referring to this tree, I think. See that beautiful tree? Ah. There. Alright. Dandavat pranams, Niri Hari Prabhu and Bhavatani Mataji. Oops, where are we? Okay. Now it is developed very luxuriantly, covering the whole corner of the courtyard. This is a sign of Bhuri Punya. Chandrika Vishadasmerai Saruna Panga Vikshitai Svakartanam Ivaraja Satvabhyam Srashtripalaka. Those Vishnu forms, by their pure smiling, which resembles the increasing light of the moon, and by the sidelong glances of their reddish eyes, created and protected the desires of their own devotees, as if by the modes of passion and goodness. Purport. Those Vishnu forms blessed the devotees with their clear glances and smiles, which resembled the increasingly full light of the moon, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. As maintainers, they glanced upon their devotees, embracing them and protecting them by smiling. Their smiles resembled the mode of goodness, protecting all the desires of the devotees. And the glancing of their eyes resembled the mode of passion. Actually, in this verse, the word raja does not mean passion, but affection. In the material world, rajagun is passion, but in the spiritual world, it is affection. In the material world, affection is contaminated by rajagun and tamagun, but in the Shuddha Sattva, the affection that maintains the devotees is transcendental. The word swakartanam refers to great desires. As mentioned in this verse, the glance of Lord Vishnu creates the desires of the devotees. A pure devotee, however, has no desires. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami comments that because the desires of the devotees whose attention is fixed on Krishna have already been fulfilled, the Lord's sidelong glances create variegated desires in relation to Krishna and devotional service. In the material world, desire is a product of Rajagun and Tamagun. Hilt desire in this, I don't know what hilt means. Hilt desire in the spiritual world gives rise to a variety of everlasting transcendental service. I think this is a typo. Anyways. Thus, the word swakartanam refers to eagerness to serve Krishna. In Vrindavan, there is a place where there was no temple, but a devotee desired, "Let there be a temple and seva, devotional service." Therefore, what was once an empty corner has now become a place of pilgrimage. Such are the desires of a devotee. Is Srila Prabhupada referring to Krishna Balaram Mandir? I have a feeling he is. And I think that devotee is himself, but I don't know. What do you think? Nrihari Prabhu and Pavatarni Mataji, is Srila Prabhupada referring to himself here? Like indirectly? Atmadi stamba paryantar murtina mabhish. Wait, what verse are we reading up to? Let me just check 1 second. I think this might be the last verse. I have it here. Okay, we're reading up to 52. Oh, hilt means while. Okay. Oh, okay. That original tree that Srila Prabhupada is referring to is gone now and had been replaced. But when, I'm not sure if this is Niri Hari Prabhu or Bhavatarani Mataji speaking, but maybe both of them. But okay, when he was there in 76 as a Pujari, we saw it in its full glory. Nice. Atmadi stamba paryantar murti madbhischara charai nritta gita dane karhai pritag upasita. All beings, both moving and non-moving, from the four-headed Lord Brahma down to the most insignificant living entity, had taken forms and were differently worshipping those Vishnu Murtis according to their respective capacities, with various means of worship, such as dancing and singing. Purport. Innumerable living entities are engaged in different types of worship of the Supreme according to their abilities and karma, but everyone is engaged. Jiver Sarupa Hoy, Krishner Nityadas. There is no one who is not serving. Therefore, the Mahabhagavat, the topmost devotee, sees everyone as being engaged in the service of Krishna. Only himself does he see as not engaged. We have to elevate ourselves from a lower position to a higher position, and the topmost position is that of direct service in Vrindavan. But everyone is engaged in service. Denial of the service of the Lord is Maya. Ekale Ishvara Krishna ar sababhritya. Jare jaiche nachai se taiche kore nritya. Only Krishna is the Supreme Master, and all others are his servants. As Krishna desires, everyone dances according to his tune. That's from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5:142. There are two kinds of living entities, the moving and the non-moving. Trees, for example, stand in one place, whereas ants move. Brahma saw that all of them, down to the smallest creatures, had assumed different forms and were accordingly engaged in the service of Lord Vishnu. One receives a form according to the way one worships the Lord. In the material world, the body one receives is guided by the demigods. This is sometimes referred to as the influence of the stars. As indicated in Bhagavad Gita 3.27 by the words Prakrite Kriyamanani, according to the laws of nature, one is controlled by the demigods. All living entities are serving Krishna in different ways, but when they are Krishna conscious, their service is fully manifest. As a flower in the bud gradually fructifies and yields its desired aroma and beauty, so when a living entity comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, the beauty of his real form comes into full blossom. That is the ultimate beauty and the ultimate fulfillment of desire. Okay, so this is the last verse we're reading for today. Animadyar mahimar bhir ajadyabhir vibhutibhi chaturvingshatibhis tatvai parita maharadibhi. All the Vishnu Murtis were surrounded by the opulences, headed by Anima Siddhi, by the mystic potencies, headed by Aja, and by the 24 elements for the creation of the material world, headed by the Mahat Tattva. So these were all the opulences, all the mystic potencies that were surrounding, and the 24 elements of the creation for the material world. Purport. In this verse, the word mahimabhihi means Aishvarya, or opulence. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can do whatever he likes. That is his Aishvarya. No one can command him, but he can command everyone. Sad Aishvarya Purnam. The Lord is full in 6 opulences. The Yoga Siddhis, the perfections of yoga, such as the ability to become smaller than the smallest, Anima Siddhi, are bigger than the biggest, Mahima Siddhi, are present in Lord Vishnu. Sad Aishvarya Purnoya Iha Bhagavan. That's Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 1.3. The word Aja means Maya, or mystic power. Everything mysterious is in full existence in Vishnu. The 24 elements mentioned are the 5 working senses, the Pancha Karmendriya, the 5 senses for obtaining knowledge, Pancha Gyanendriya, the 5 gross material elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, the 5 sense objects, Pancha Tanmatra, the mind, Manas, the false ego, Ahankar, the Mahat Tattva, and material nature, Prakriti. All 24 of these elements are employed for the manifestation of this material world. The Mahat Tattva is divided into different subtle categories, but originally it is called the Mahat Tattva. So we'll see. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, Sabhav, Samskar, he saw all these things, their own independence being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord. They had all taken forms and were also worshipping the Vishnu Murtis. And then he sees the Vishnu Murtis all had external unlimited forms full of knowledge and bliss and existing beyond the influence of time. Their great glory was not even to be touched by the Gyanis engaged in studying the Upanishads. Thus, Lord Brahma saw the Supreme Brahman, by whose energy this entire universe, with its moving and non-moving living beings, is manifested. He also saw at the same time all the calves and boys as the Lord's expansions. Then, by the power of the effulgence of those Vishnu Murtis, Lord Brahma, his 11 senses jolted by astonishment and stunned by transcendental bliss, became silent, just like a child's clay doll in the presence of the village deity. Anyway, so we'll read all this tomorrow. And I have a question for you, all of you. I'm not sure. It says there's only 4 people watching right now. But anyways, Madhavi Didi, are you there? And Madhavi Didi and Rukmini Didi. And so would it be okay if we do the Rupa Shiksha program a little bit later, like right after we do the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading. Because tomorrow is the last day of Srila Prabhupada's purports. After 2 years of daily reading, we're finally coming to the last purports. And the chapter, we don't have so much left in the chapter. So we might finish a little bit early. But then I was thinking maybe we could like read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam until 8:30, like now. And then we could start the Rupa Shiksha program at 9 o'clock. So that would be in 20 minutes from now. So would 20 minutes from now, tomorrow, be an okay time for Rukmini? I guess that would be in the evening time. Would that be an okay time to do the Rupa Shiksha program on Zoom? If that works, then I will, then we can tomorrow on Kamika Akadashi, we can finish Srila Prabhupada's purports. I think it'd be nice to finish on Akadashi day, the Srila Prabhupada's purports. So let me know if that works. I'll also ask in our WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Okay, and also Nri Hari Prabhu and Bhavatarani Mataji. Where is it? It will work for you guys. That's what I would be doing is reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam at the same time as I've been doing every day. So that's 7:30 India time, the same time I started today. But then after I finish the class, after I finish the reading, Srila Prabhupada's last purports, then half an hour after that, there will be a Zoom program where we go over Rupa Shiksha. We've been doing it for a while, and then we stopped for a few weeks, and now I'm going to start it up again tomorrow. So so that's a different program though. And maybe I should send out the link for if anybody else wants to join. Anyhow. If you want to, with the Rupa Shiksha program, if anybody wants to stay up to date with that and get all the links and material and everything, we have a Discord server. There's you can sign up. You don't even need to download the app. It's online also. This is it, Discord, and there's this Rupa Shiksha section here. See, I have all these different channels, different topics. I'm going to be working on the new songbook and putting things here. Kirtan requests, ideas for videos. Anyways, and we'll keep on adding here. I'm going to put daily quotes here. If you have any questions, it's a whole thing. Anyway, so if you would like to join this, you can go to vineofdevotion.com and you can see there's a whole, I posted an article about this thing. And that's the best way to keep up with the Rupa Shiksha program. All right, Hari Bol, everybody. Yes, it would be a different link. It will be. It won't be on Facebook or YouTube. It will be on Zoom. And Pradyumna Prabhu, yes, this Bhavatarani Mataji, she did write the Guru. Yes, all the songs that I grew up with. I actually didn't grow up with that many of the children's songs that many other kids grew up, but I did grow up with all of Bhavatarani Mataji songs. I know most of them by heart, like I can sing along with the recording. So yes, Pradyumna Prabhu. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath. Okay, I'll send the link. I can send it to you on Messenger. Yeah, I'll do that. Bhavatam Mataji, you have a big fan here. She loves that. He loves, Prajuna Prabhu loves that book. You have a true fan here. Okay. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Ju ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Goraksharas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namachay Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम जाय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जाय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जाय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जाय। श्रील प्रभुपाद purports की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय। श्री ब्रह्म विमोहन लीला की जाय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाय कृष्ण भक्ति प्रददेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वंशा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Dandavad pranams everybody. See you all tomorrow.